Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we will explore the cause and effect of just saying yes in your everyday life or in business. I will dig into topics that are not just stimulating, but will challenge you to be better in everything you do. The podcast is based on the simplicity of saying yes to opportunities you might encounter every single day. I'm your host, Jim Riley. Join me in my first series titled Blue Collar Redefined. All right, well, welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. My name is Jim Riley, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in. We've just had a fantastic reception of the shows. We are over 1,500 downloads to date, and I'm just thrilled that this is something that's resonating with all of our listeners, and I've received some wonderful feedback. By the way, thank you all for your feedback on the volume. I know that some interviews have been hit and miss. Actually, our first one was the best one, and now we've kind of been up and down that hill. But we're working on it. Okay, I'm 11 shows in, doing the best we can. So thanks for being patient with us. And speaking of patience, today's show is actually my first call-in show, and I think the volume is good. So as long as we can get a good production out of this thing, hopefully you'll have a great show to listen to. So it's been a fun week as we dive into 4th of July coming up. You don't really think about holidays and days that you're launching these shows, and I realize that we launch on Wednesdays and the 4th of July is Wednesday. But if you're like me, I'm going to be on the treadmill for 2 hours straight training for Spartan racing. So I'm going to have a chance to listen to my favorite podcast, which right now it's Gary V, and David Meltzer, two of my favorite guys to listen to. And I'll get filled up with all the good stuff from those guys, and hopefully this podcast will resonate with you. Baja United, if you have not noticed yet, we're doing Baja sessions on Mondays, and that'll be automatically in your feed if you want to hear about what's going on in Baja and Baja United and meet some of our winemakers and our partners that own restaurants. That's the place to go. If you don't care about any of that stuff, then don't download it. It's okay. We're going to put it up there anyhow because that's what we're all about is Baja stuff, and you can have some fun with it. And speaking of things in life, we talk about sometimes trade versus education, formal education. And this is the perfect topic for this week's guest, Ryan Carson. And I love for you to listen to the show because this is the foundation of why I created this show. And it was to encourage people to make decisions in their life based on what they want to do, following their heart, and what makes the most sense based on their own individual skill set. And it's just incredible the business that Ryan has created and the opportunities that he is offering people if they want to go down the trade route. And I look forward to getting your feedback and comments after you listen to the show. So please shoot them to me via text message, direct message, or however you want to get them over to me. Facebook, I get a lot of stuff on Facebook. So without further ado, let's get Ryan Carson on the show and have some fun with it. Here's Ryan. Hello, and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. And this is actually our first interview over the phone, so I'm excited about the new technology. And I have Ryan Carson with me on the line from Portland, Oregon, right, Ryan?
That's right. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to be here.
Hey, you know what? I love following your Instagram. You've got some great inspirational quotes, but you mix that in with some of the things that you're doing in business. And I was inspired to reach out to you and see if you wanted to be on the show. I think that's how it went down.
I think so too, and I'm excited about it because your audience and your message is just so in line with the way I live and the way I think. So I'm excited about it.
Well, you are actually spot on with the reason why we started this podcast called The Answer Yes, and based on giving people information to say yes to things in their life that might not necessarily be that college degree. So with that being said, Ryan, I'm just getting to know you via social media and your web and some interviews I've watched and a little bit on the phone today. But can you give us a little bit of your background and where you started off in life, and then we can get to where you're at today?
Yeah, you bet. So I was born and raised in Colorado, had two wonderful parents, really was blessed with a wonderful childhood. Was safe, was taken care of. My parents told me they loved me all the time. It was great. And in that environment, I was also lucky to have exposure to technology. So my dad was one of those guys that bought, the first Apple computer when it came out. and we always had kind of new technology around the house. And so, I just started using it. And then I was lucky again in high school. So I was kind of, just going to school, doing my thing. And my math teacher said to me, hey, Ryan, have you heard of this thing called programming? And I said, no, not really. And she said, it's where you control a computer. And you tell what to do, and it does whatever you want. I said, that sounds amazing. I want to learn that. And so I took an elective class on that, and just kind of fell in love with this idea of creating something from nothing. This idea of you write down some words in the computer, and then all of a sudden the computer is doing these amazing, interesting things. So that's kind of where my interest in technology started. And so then I was, again, lucky to go to college. So, and I mean that because my parents paid for it. So
okay.
They said, Ryan, you're going to go to college and we're going to pay for it. It's going to be great. And so I studied computer science and then got my degree. And then I got my first job after college. And I immediately, within a day, I knew that I didn't actually need my college degree.
Really?
And it was shocking to me.
Yeah, wow. That's very intuitive of you at an early age.
Yeah, it was just very clear. Like the things I'm doing in my job were not the things I learned in college. I learned all these high-level theoretical deep concepts, but the truth was I was being asked to build something very basic. And this is when the reality struck me, and we were talking about this, before we started recording. It became very clear to me that actually most of the jobs out there are actually trade jobs. They're not theoretical science. They're not advanced, concepts. They're actually just like becoming a carpenter or, a florist. They're very similar to that. And we've wrapped it up inside of a college degree and sort of tricked ourselves into believing that the degree is actually how we get the job. And so now that led to starting a company to actually create a better way to become job ready for something that you're passionate about without getting student debt.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So let me ask you real quick about Colorado, growing up there. Is that considered where you grew up really kind of a tech town, or was that abnormal for your teacher to be intuitive to talk to you about getting, learning programming and stuff like that?
It wasn't really a tech town at all. I mean, the Air Force is there. There's some pretty advanced defense contractors there, but no, it was nothing like, growing up in San Francisco or Silicon Valley. So, again, kind of lucky,
Yeah, and then, I know what your company does now because I've done some research on your site, but talking about programming in high school, that sounds a little intense to me, or at least intimidating. I mean, what was your, obviously you realized it was something that you were interested in, but were you intimidated at first?
Yeah. So, technology and especially programming, seems scary. Like we envision, it's super smart people in like dark rooms, typing things into computers. And so the whole thing seems very inaccessible, but the truth is it's none of that. It's actually a creative, fun job where someone says to you, hey, we're going to, we want to solve this problem and we're going to create an app to do it. And here's what the app needs to do and what it needs to look like. And then it's actually, it's like someone saying, I want to build a house. And it's like being the architect of that house. You get to say, okay, well, we could put a wall there and we could have a spiral staircase here and but we need to add this other piece here, otherwise the house will fall down. And so there's this really, really creative part to it where you're solving problems using technology, but it's not something advanced that you're doing in a dark room by yourself. It's something totally different. And this is, again, why I wanted to start Treehouse. So Treehouse is an online school. We teach adults how to code so that they can get jobs without student debt. And we presume that you know nothing,
Right.
That you have zero experience, that you've never written a line of code. And we've done it for 8 years now. We've taught 850,000 people how to code now.
Wow, that's an incredible number of people you've taught. Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work, but it was worth it,
And how many years has that been around now?
8 years. So I just turned 40 this year. So started the company when I was 32. And I'm just so passionate about helping people to get jobs without student debt, and it's like what you talked about again before the show, that there is this crazy narrative that we're told that, you need to go to college to get a respectable, high-paying job, instead of saying, why don't you take some time to figure out what gets you excited, and then try to build a career around that versus the other way around. And actually, I think that the story you told me about the woman who worked, inside the spirits industry was inspiring, because I don't know if you want to share that, but it's just a great example of how people get turned around about what they're trying to do and how to get there.
Yeah, well, and I've shared it on some of my other shows, but happy to talk about it. Basically what it was is she's working behind the bar at a very exclusive, high-end hotel resort on the beach, and she's bartending. She's top of her class. She's a mixologist. She does an incredible job. She got great patrons there. Talking about a $20 cocktail. And she was explaining to me how that wasn't her career choice, and she was eventually going to go back to college. And when I asked her, hey, what kind of money do you make here? And she said about $90,000 a year. I'm thinking, wow, $90,000 a year, and you're at one of the most exclusive resorts, and you're really good at it. You got a lot of friends here. Why wouldn't this be your career? By the way, what I didn't share is I wound up hiring, this is back in the day when I was at Kettle One Vodka, I wound up hiring the guy that was running the valet department. That guy was making about $100,000 in valet too, so, and looking for that career job to utilize his college degree. And I'm just thinking, gosh, folks, there is a lot of opportunity within what you're doing if you love what you're doing. And it's one of the reasons why I resonated towards you, Ryan, because of the interviews that I've seen and the things that you've posted. Is there any stories that you can share about some people that came in, knew nothing about coding, and now they're on the other side of that with some type of career job?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the amazing, inspiring folks that I've met, his name's Jeremy. Jeremy grew up in the kind of tougher parts of LA. He was essentially raised in the projects, and he was never exposed to technology. And then over time, he ended up finding MySpace, and was kind of messing around with it, and realized, wait a minute, I can kind of change the colors on my MySpace page, and I can kind of mess around with it. I can control this. And so he basically started to teach himself the very kind of basics of programming, just by kind of Googling around and changing things and seeing what happened. And then he realized, wait a minute, I think, I hear about all these jobs in Silicon Valley. I hear about, there's going to be 1.3 million new jobs in technology with only 400,000 people to fill them. So we have a 900,000 person gap to fill. And all these jobs are paid, between $75,000 up to $200,000 a year. I wonder if I can get one of them. And so he actually started, Googling around and teaching himself very basics of coding. And then he actually came across Treehouse, and he started learning on Treehouse in his free time, because it's online, you can do it in 1 to 2 hours a day. And he started teaching himself. And then this is the awesome part. He didn't